Hi there, welcome to another episode of the RevOps Show. Today's episode dives into a topic that's been stirring up debates across business. After reading a recent LinkedIn article, Doug is fired up and ready to tackle a conversation that's been driving him crazy for a while now. MQLs. Are MQLs really dead? Are they really all that bad? Or are we missing the bigger picture? Tune in as Doug and Jess break down the challenges and realities of this LinkedIn post, MQLs, and whether it's time to rethink how we approach this part of the sales process.
Jess, I'm confused.
Why are you confused?
By our recording time.
It's on its scheduled. It's a usually scheduled time that usually gets moved. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's on our scheduled time, but I don't remember.
I can't remember the last time that we recorded on our scheduled time.
I have what I think is a legitimate question. Have we ever recorded at our
Twice, I think. This is the third time.
Yeah, so
in 8 months.
I'm like, I mentally, I'm not prepared for this.
It's funny, and I'm sure you've realized this because you're pattern recognition. We end up moving it to the time that used to be our regular scheduled time. Okay.
I remember thinking a couple weeks ago, yeah, it's good that we moved this thing off of Friday since we recorded. Every time we record, it's Friday.
You know what, though? If it was there, we wouldn't record on Fridays. That's what I tell myself.
Hey, if that's what gets you to sleep at night. You know what I miss, Jess? I miss our 3 p.m. Friday recordings.
I don't.
Those were the best.
I don't.
Those
were crazy.
Those were the best.
Everyone's filter was gone. It wasn't good. It wasn't good.
So, Jess, you had a big weekend.
Oh, I did. Yeah, D23. It was exciting stuff.
D20, is that the Mighty Ducks 23? D23, Ducks 23?
It is not. It is the Disney Expo, where they make all the big announcements for new stuff for movies, TV shows, the company, and most importantly, the parks.
And so what were you most excited? Let's do a little bit of a crossover.
Wow.
Podcast for you, right? Because you have your Disney podcast.
Yep, I do.
So what were you most excited about?
Villains Land in Magic Kingdom. I mean, we have virtually no information, a very vague timeline. But I'm most excited about that.
Is that because of your evilness?
Exactly. Yeah.
So who's the villain that you want? What villain do you think deserves the greatest focus?
I think Maleficent is the one.
I expected something less trite from you than that.
Well, I don't mean to be trite. I think I should be offended. One thing that I did see within the community that people are gunning for, you might not be familiar with this, is an Emperor's New Groove roller coaster, because there is a scene in it with the villain where she goes down to her lab and they ride a roller coaster. So that's what people are gunning. That would actually be pretty cool.
What ride? What do you think would be the best villain ride?
I haven't had enough time to think about this, Doug. I don't know. A Maleficent roller coaster would be badass. That would be really, really exciting. I have a feeling we're going to get a dark ride probably around one of the newer IP villains.
Yeah, shouldn't there be shouldn't Darth Vader be the villain or something?
This is not Star Wars.
Disney owns Star Wars.
That goes to. Yeah. I know that it owns Star Wars. This is not a Star Wars land. That goes to Batuu. That would go in Batuu. That would not go in Magic Kingdom.
That would go in what?
In Batuu. We were there, Doug. You've visited Batuu before.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'm sorry. See, you said Magic Kingdom and then you said Batu, so
Right, that's in Hollywood Studios.
no, I understand that. I realize
That's
that.
where
But
that's where it would go.
I was
It would
thinking about
not.
the park. I was thinking about the park.
No, I understand. I understand.
Like you you got to keep apples to apples.
We're talking about the parks overall.
I understand. All right, well, okay. What about Marvel? Where does Marvel go? Where do Marvel villains go?
So Marvel is a challenge because there is some kind of agreement that's been had between. So Marvel's a challenge at Disney World because Universal owns the IP for the comic books, so they can't have any. I think they can't have any character that already exists in a Universal park from the comic books in Disney World on the East Coast. Now on the West Coast, they can do whatever they want at Disneyland, and I realize that this is ridiculous, and the fact that I know this is ridiculous, but I don't know what they could put in because I don't fully understand the rules. But I know there's a rule about them putting Marvel characters in the Disney parks.
You know, who the legal manifestations that impact our entertainment. I had no idea, and I used to wonder why Fantastic Four got remade regularly. And I learned that apparently 20th Century Fox had the rights to it so long as they did something new with it.
Correct.
Like every 7 years, or it would revert.
Yeah, that was one of the. I mean, I think people knew it was in the works, but that was one thing that got shown over the weekend. The new cast of Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
On
why?
set.
Here's my question: why?
I don't know. I don't know.
You know, at some point, like how many times do they want to fail with the same IP? Has there been a good Fantastic Four movie?
I don't know that there's been a good one. There is nostalgia around the Jessica Alba, Chris Evans one, but I mean that one is real.
That's
corny,
the one where Mike
whatever.
Chiklis was the
Yes.
thing, right?
Yes. I remember it being really corny. I've only seen it one time, so I did not see the latest one that was just apparently horrible.
All right, Jess. Enough about Disney World. Oh wait, one last question. Are you do you have your meeting set with what's his name?
Josh tomorrow.
There you go. Tomorrow.
Working on it.
You know, you never showed up to the meeting I set up for you with Bob Iger when we were at Disney.
I know. I did not. Bob didn't show up.
No, Bob was there. He called me. He's like, where is she? I said, she's hungover.
Is that what you told him?
That's what I told him. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm sorry. You're an Eisner. Like you're not a fan of Iger, right?
I mean, after reading Disney Wars, I became less of a fan of Iger. I mean, between the Chapek of it all, I would prefer Bob Iger over what we had. But so it's a lesser of two evils situation. But I gained a lot of respect for Eisner and some disrespect for Iger having read that book.
Oh wow! I don't know that many people. What's your take on Jeffrey Katzenberg?
Oh, he's crazy. I mean, all three of them are crazy. Just so we're clear. No, he's abusive. He's abusive. That's my takeaway.
I don't know that that's fair.
You need to go watch Waking Sleeping Beauty.
Anyways, we could have an entire episode on this. See, I should be a guest on your Disney podcast, Jess, and I should just throw bombs.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
What are we talking about today, Jess?
We're talking about MQLs, and I don't know if
MQLs.
I don't know if I'm mentally and emotionally prepared.
I honestly don't know if I am either.
So you read an article that got you all fired up. We had a plan for this episode, and you called an audible.
Well, yeah, because the plan for the episode was I had to do a whole lot of prep work.
Oh, so this was procrastination, not you getting fired up. Okay, cool. Great.
Well, I've been fired up for it. Like the topic has been driving me crazy for a while. So like I've been seeing this over the last 2 years, the death of MQLs. MQLs are bad. And I mean, candidly, I always felt like MQLs were at one point overrated, but now, I don't understand why. I don't understand how the idea of MQLs have become this controversial lightning topic. So the LinkedIn post that I saw was, I'm being convinced by Kyle Poyer that MQLs are no longer a reliable metric. This makes even more sense when we realize that today's market no longer limits itself to inbound strategies and solely holds sales teams accountable for revenue results. I don't know if that's true. A, I don't know if that's true. B, I don't know that it's different. So when companies take a step further to account-based strategies, for example, the challenges begin to appear. It seems to me that flagging MQLs based on scores and submitted forms is becoming outdated. It makes me think. So, like, the difficulty that I have here is this idea that the MQL came to exist through inbound marketing, and that inbound marketing was ever enough.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this might be some of what you're going to get into, or some of what you're saying. Like, reading this, my initial response, and I kind of honed in on the MQLs based on scores, is like, this doesn't sound to me like the concept of MQLs is bad, but your score is not the right approach. Like,
well, the application of it is correct.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Jess. Who is the most successful company at inbound marketing? I mean, we have not done an exhaustive research to determine the accuracy of this, but if I were to ask you, who comes to mind as the most successful company at inbound marketing, who would you say?
HubSpot.
Yeah, HubSpot, unequivocally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone would disagree with it. And here's the thing that I've never fully understand by the inbound marketing obsessives.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to one of the largest, certainly relative to its size, inbound marketing teams, and a volume of content around inbound, geared to an inbound marketing strategy, what else did HubSpot have?
A lot of
Among the
money.
largest boiler rooms in the history of growth companies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? Hundreds of, look, I became familiar with HubSpot through some of their content. I became a customer of HubSpot because a salesperson called me every quarter, at least once a quarter, for probably 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this idea that inbound marketing is responsible, it was always a mythology to begin with. I remember when I was telling somebody that we'd made the decision that we were going to partner with HubSpot and really focus on HubSpot. They're like, Doug, I'm not sure. The only company that I know that inbound marketing actually worked for is HubSpot. And even they have.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, this whole idea that inbound marketing, like, the shift that HubSpot identified was a legitimate shift caused by the internet, but it wasn't. Like, HubSpot did not invent inbound marketing. HubSpot identified and coined the term inbound marketing. Right. So like, the thing that, like, the problem that I have with the underlying structure, and so this LinkedIn post referred to an article on growthonhinge.com by Kyle Poyer, Your Guide to Go-to-Market Metrics 2.0. Actually, Your Guide to GTM Metrics 2.0. Mm-hmm. And look, I want to be clear. I am not. I'm going to have some issues with this article. If you take out all the stuff that he talks about say goodbye to MQLs, if you take that all out, then I really don't have an issue with what he's saying. I would agree with it. I think the reason that he's saying say goodbye to MQLs is that, candidly, if he didn't have that attempt at controversy, it would kind of be like, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. But, the thing that happened, and it's funny because this is what consultants do. Consultants are extraordinarily good at identifying an ends, turning it into a means, making it really complicated, throwing a lot of metrics, and then trying to charge a lot of money for it. And so what came as a result of this inbound marketing, content marketing, and really on a much broader sense, marketing automation. Because by the way, like I don't even think HubSpot was. I mean, you've got to look to Pardot, Marketo. I'm forgetting. God, I forget the name of there was another one that actually were far more out there about the MQL, and what they were doing. What came with this was this idea that you need to directly attribute revenue to marketing activities.
Yep.
And so we're going to have an SLA. Now, this is the part. This became very popularized by Mike Volpe, who was the CMO at HubSpot. This idea of the service level agreement between sales and marketing that marketing would generate X number of sales of marketing qualified leads per month. Sales would generate Y number of, and
right.
And the fundamental, where inbound marketing started coming to be a thing was still in this place where we were talking about two types of marketing or two types of communication. And we would talk about online and offline communication.
Yep.
Right. So we still have this whole thing of and this is also under the false god of you'll be able to attribute everything. John Wanamaker famously said, "I know I'm wasting 50% of my money on advertising. My problem is I just don't know which 50%. Digital marketing is eliminating." And so this idea that we're going to tie MQLs as a milestone rather than a description. And the problem is probably that it got called a life cycle, which inferred a linear progression.
Yeah.
An MQL becomes an SQL. So that's the fundamental place where what everyone is saying about MQLs is the manifestation of Goodhart's law.
Remind us all what Goodhart's law is.
If you take a good measurable and you turn it into an objective, it is neither a good objective nor is it a good measurable any longer. And so tracking MQLs was and I still, but you can here's the thing that I'll say. You can call it whatever the hell you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Right. My favorite, by the way, is he has a chart. Unified go to market metrics, old way, visitors, leads, marketing qualified leads, sales accepted, sales qualified, won deals.
Yeah.
Now, other than the fact that I'd actually never seen sales accepted before sales qualified, I could make the argument for it. I've always seen sales qualified, then sales accepted.
Yeah, I was surprised about those being in that order.
The reason for it would be that sales accepted is that sales starts working it. Or it goes into a pipeline, and sales qualified is really
and then sales qualified. Sales qualified's the lead. Yep.
Is banned, basically banned. Budget authority need timeline.
Yep.
Right, but visitors, leads, MQL, SAL, SQL, deal. One. Better way. Identified, aware, interested, considering, selecting, choosing. Now, basically what this is ADA.
ADA. Sorry, I'm not.
So that's because you went ahead and majored in what was it?
Computer animation.
Animation. You went into animation instead of attention, interest, decision, action.
Okay.
It's one of the oldest marketing frameworks. Right? Get the attention, get their interest, they make a decision, take action. Right. Other than basically what he did was he reinvented that. You have visitors identified, leads aware, marketing qualified, interested. See, I think, and by the way, there's a huge space between aware and interested, but okay. Sales accepted, considering, sales qualified, selecting, one choosing. Okay. I mean, if you want to call it interested instead of marketing qualified lead, that's fine. But you haven't fundamentally changed anything.
You and I had the exact same. So I read the article before I read your thoughts. You and I had the exact same reaction to this graphic. I was like, okay, you've changed the words. It almost reminds me of when we get into sales pipeline stages with clients, where it's like, okay, they feel like they're changing the stage itself by changing the name. No, it's the same thing. It's got a different label. Like that's was my interpretation of this, is they just changed the label on it.
So the real question here is, what's the operational definition? Like, the reason that we adopted life cycles was because it provided operationalization. I can't speak today. It operationalized a very complex backstage process, and it enabled us to create a segmentation so that sales and marketing could operate in a unified place. So that basically, our definition of marketing qualified is, at its simplest, it's qualified for marketing activities. So we're going to start allocating proactive marketing activities for leads accounts. Now, this is also where, candidly, this is the original sin of inbound marketing and marketing automation. Did you know that inbound marketing had an original sin?
I did not know that. I did not know that.
To provide content for you and our listeners. And by the way, if you look at the structure of Kyle's argument, what's wrong with MQLs? The old view of go-to-market, marketing generates leads, hopefully in our ICP. Marketing scores those leads, sending the goodish ones, MQLs, to sales. If you're sending MQLs to sales, well, at the point of MQL, depending upon what type of business that you have, sales needs to be working. Like if you look at what we do, if sales doesn't get involved until they're already sales qualified, then we're probably too late. Because by the time you've got sales qualified, there's a level of intent that is there, right? Which means all we're doing is catching. And like it or not, content is not enough to move a market in a complex sale. Sales cherry picks, blah, 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 blah. Well, the first statement, marketing generates leads, hopefully in our ICP. Well, if it's not in your ICP, how are you calling it a lead? Or okay, that's a lead,
but not an MQL.
Right. Correct. So, and oh, by the way, especially if you're in a growth stage, if you're only generating leads, if you're only generating awareness and interest from organizations in your ICP, then you're not generating enough leads in your ICP, right? Your filter is too tight. The original sin of inbound marketing is that a lead and an account are two different things.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're business to business, a lead is in an account.
Yeah.
A lead is not a person, right?
Yep.
Because if a lead were a person, it would be, I have 5 leads at one account.
Right.
Right. Now, here's the other error. What we came in with account-based marketing, and far too many people perceive account-based marketing as company-based marketing.
Yeah.
They identified the contact. If you're in B2B, the contact is not the entity. So they went with company, which as a rule, it's better than contact.
Right.
But a company typically represents or can often represent multiple accounts. Right. So really understanding what is that account structure, what makes an account, what makes a potential customer was a was an important element of or is an important element of the process. The other thing, and I think this is why we are always so frustrated by this, is this idea that inbound marketing was one thing and outbound was another thing. And so inbound marketing focused on the person and the fit, outbound focused on, inbound marketing focused on the person and the pain.
Yep.
Outbound focused on the account and the fit.
Yep.
And while they accomplished that in two areas, but the idea that I had this inbound funnel and an outbound funnel, that's just bad operations to begin with.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so if Kyle's argument is we need to normalize so that whatever methodology that we're running, it flows the same, then I'm all for that.
Yep.
Right. And if MQL in your organization carries this baggage, that's fine. But that's not about MQL. That's not about this idea that, MQLs are dragging down whatever. And so, let me pause there and let you.
So I've got a couple of thoughts, and there's one piece that it's really hard to get, I think, reps' minds wrapped around, particularly early on, because in their mind, they're working a contact, right? But we always talk about you're qualifying the account, not the contact. So I think because typically lead MQL is attached to the contact, we're used to qualifying the contact, not the account. So we're not thinking about that. And so I think that's a place where this gets lost, is we're looking, to your point, at the contact, not the specific account. So you should be qualifying the account when you're looking at, is this an MQL or not? That's one. And then the other piece you talked about, we put life cycle stages in place to kind of have that structure. A lot of folks don't have clear definitions for what their life cycle stages are.
Correct. That's where the problem is.
And we used to not, when we would deliver the life cycle stages, we used to not necessarily have definitions on them, at least not as specific as we do now when we go through it. And we realized that was the problem. Is it's like, well, it's a marketing qualified lead, it's an MQL. What that means something different to Bob than it means to Jane, and making sure that you have very clear definitions around what you're talking about when you're talking about a lead, a marketing qualified lead, a sales accepted lead, a sales qualified lead, all important. And I think that's where this gets lost frequently. And those definitions, when we do see them, are frequently tied to the contact, not the account. And when we talk about a marketing qualified lead, we're actually talking about the account or the company, depending on how they're working. That definition is tied to that information, not to the contact information.
Say more about that in terms of its application.
If a rep's going after an account and they have it as marketing qualified, they shouldn't not be reaching out to the person that they have. Now, if that person doesn't fit a persona that we want to engage, then they've got to work to get to the right person. That doesn't make them not a marketing qualified lead. And
correct. That gets back to that's back to the idea that the entity is the account,
right?
Not the contact,
right? Now the personas are important because I need to know who are the right folks that I want to engage with or connect with. So actually, our team ran into this. We just did a drill around a prospect list that we got for a client. And I got a lot of questions from the team when we ran the drill about, okay, well, who on this list do we want to reach out to? And it's like, well, we want to reach out to everybody because all of these accounts are in our qualified leads. And even some folks on our team had a hard time getting their heads wrapped around it. And it's like, well, I'm going to reach out to this person, even if they're not the right persona, because I want them to connect me to the right persona. And I think those things frequently get conflated when we're talking about a marketing qualified and a sales qualified lead. The account company is what we should be qualifying.
Well, yeah. And I would say, an example of, I'm actually, if you wanted to make an argument to eliminate something, I would be comfortable making an argument to eliminate the whole idea of what is called life cycle.
Yep.
And the reason for that is life cycle only really, life cycle can be valuable for your first sale. The difficulty is I'm a customer, but I'm also a marketing qualified lead and I'm a sales. It's like, how many different points in the life cycle can I be? Now, this is why we created the deals framework.
Yep.
And I was, as I was reading this, I was kind of like, yeah, he looks to me like Kyle should have read the deals framework a couple of years ago. I'm not trying to insult Kyle. I think that there's a lot of good stuff in the piece, Kyle. So my issue again is it, and I get it. We've got to get attention, right? So, hey, MQLs are dead. But let's talk about what we really need to do in a meaningful way. So whatever you want to call this MQL, and right at that level, we would refer to them as either identified or activated, right? They're either in the discover phase. They're in the discover phase or the engaged phase. Sorry, I'm dyslexic, right? So the MQL is an engaged phase, right? And what we're looking to do, the objective of what we should be seeking at the MQL phase is engagement. And by the way, if you take a look at the identified path, at the better path, the better way, identified, aware, interested, considering, between aware, interested is kind of a weird thing, but okay, is like engagement. There's an element of engagement. If you're selling something very simple, then this is fine. You go from aware to interesting. But if you're selling something that's higher value, if you're selling something based on differentiation, there's a learning process that needs to take place. That's engagement. Now, at an MQL phase, what we're saying is we don't have all of the elements of a sales qualified.
Yep.
A sales qualified account, sales qualified lead, whatever you want to call it. So not having the right people is okay at marketing qualified. It's not okay at sales qualified.
Yep.
Right. By sales qualified, we need to be talking to the right people. There needs to be a basis of understanding. There needs to be those things that are happening. The difficulty is, and it's why I'm seeing sales get less and less effective, why the reason that people are looking to kill the MQL is not because the idea of the MQL no longer applies. It's how we treat the MQL. And if we treat the MQL as a high intent, ready to buy lead, the problem's not with the MQL. The problem's with the playbook.
Yep.
Right. And this goes again to where what we have to do, actually two pieces. We have to align our approach to how our market works. We also have to understand our market. Right. So one of the things that I used to say about inbound leads, and my inbound marketing friends never liked that I said this, but what I would say about inbound leads is inbound leads are valuable mistakes.
Yep.
Right. Every time you get an inbound lead, it's proof that you made a mistake. You say to me, Doug, how could getting an inbound lead be a mistake?
Yep.
The mistake is you didn't know that opportunity existed in your market.
Yep.
Right. Now, there are a lot of organizations that sell to a lot of markets where it's impossible to identify fully. So you need inbound leads because the real value of an inbound lead wasn't the awareness that you generated to the prospect. It was the awareness that they generated for you that they existed. Right. When I was at Merrill Lynch, there was this guy, every time he talked to somebody, it was always this huge opportunity. And in the early days, we would get really jealous because he was always like the term that we would use for kind of lead was we uncovered assets. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I met Jim. He's got $10 million.
Yeah.
Jim's a $10 million prospect. So we uncovered $10 million assets. His name was Tony. I remember saying to him, was like, hey, Tony, do you, he came in one time. He's like, yeah, I uncovered $200 million in assets. I'm like, oh, would you walk by the branch of right? It's like, because he never closed anything. He just was always uncovering assets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's where the game of, inbound marketing generates three times the leads at 1/3 the price.
Yeah.
Well, the reason was it was calling a form fill a lead.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it was basically calling a lead for inbound and the equivalent of a sales qualified lead for sales. And it's like, okay, wait, no, inbound and outbound done right, the cost of lead really shouldn't be materially different. So not only should we be able to identify the potential accounts, we also have the ability to identify who are the people we want to talk to. And even if you don't know the names of the people, and this is a huge flaw in both sales and marketing, is it's gotten a little bit better over the last 5 years, but the percentage of sales organizations that can actually articulate what are the roles in a typical customer that are involved in making a purchase. Mm-hmm. Right. So one of the worst questions that I think you can ask is any variation of who else would be involved in making the decision.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that question is a bad question because it's, because of the verbiage of the question, but even the better asked questions, what you should say is something more akin to the lines of, in our experience, this role, and this role, how do they play in this situation? How's that? So like, I shouldn't have to ask you who.
Yep.
Right. So I should already have my account map built, looking to fill in who's filling those roles so that and then there are always deviations and differences. So we need to understand our market is a big piece. And then, so we need to understand our market so we can align to that market, right? We can align our systems, our processes. We need to X-ray so that we can lead them through the process, right? Sales is a leading discipline. It's not a pushing discipline.
Yep.
Actually, I had it's the one thing the longest value that I got from the Tom Hopkins boot camps that I went to was he used one of the analogies he used was sales is like trying to move a string. And he said, so you've got a string and you want to move it. What happens when you pull the string?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you push the string?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sales is a pulling process. It's a leading process, right? We're the things, the people that they call that people who climb Mount Everest use to guide them.
Oh, I should know what that is because
Sherpa. That's it. Sherpa.
There. Oh, the Sherpa. Okay, okay.
We're the Sherpas. We're the guides, right? We've been here before. We know the terrain, right? Far too often, and so again, we need to be leading the process. Far too often, we're in this place trying to push the process, and that's where we're interviewing a salesperson right now, and all the questions like, so what percentage of inbound leads do you get? I'm like, what? Why does it matter? I mean, I get that there's a receptivity. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we've fallen into this place where if all we're doing is delivering to the ability of the buyer, then we're not providing any leadership. We're not providing any relationship. We're not providing any value. They should disintermediate us. So that's the first part. The second part is we then have to build the maps for our execution so that we can follow a defined framework and dynamic process on that type of journey. Where are we? Where do we need to be? Let me pull out my compass, check again. Where are we? Where do we need to be? Are we allocating resources? How do we want to allocate resources? Again, the difficulty is that far too often salespeople are in a passive role. And it's driven this way because we've created like the part where I'm ready, like I'll throw out the MQL and use a different term.
Mm-hmm.
If we'll all agree to stop two things. The first thing is, right, you're getting nervous because I said two things and it's a good chance that I'll forget the second thing. If we'll throw out this whole idea of things being a linear process.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, we don't use the term game changer unless something's actually changing the game. I realize that has nothing to do with this topic, but that is something that is that is important to me.
It's interesting what you're saying about linear process, because if we go back to when you asked me how do you apply what I was saying about account versus contact and how do you manage that, I think that's where we struggle with this because it's not one thing. There are several threads going on at the same time, and we just want it to be easy, Doug. I just want a funnel that's very clear.
And it's interesting. I don't disagree with the statement that we just want it easy, but I actually think the real problem is we just want it certain. We just want it clear.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think what drives this is this idea for false clarity.
Yep. 100% agree.
So 20% of my MQLs would become SQLs and X% will become, and now last thought on this. This is the biggest harm that the modern approach to the life cycle has done. And that is they've created a massive recency bias. The single greatest damage that marketing automation has done is to create massive recency bias. Mm-hmm. A new MQL, a new lead, everything is new, right? The contact in the database that's been in there for 5 years, hasn't done anything for 2 or 3 years, begins to get engaged, or the contact that's been in there for 5 years, every 3 to 5 months opens an email, visits website, never gets to more than 2 activities in a month and goes quiet for months and begins to emerge, begins to engage. You don't pick up that signal. And more importantly, it doesn't show up anywhere. Like, okay, how many new MQLs did we get this month? No, we didn't get any new MQLs. Right? For all the things that we say, like there's this whole, now that new logo growth is going down, if you're pursuing new accounts at the cost of growing your existing accounts, well, if you're pursuing new leads at the cost of growing your existing leads.
It's an interesting concept that I agree totally gets missed. And I know I've seen for us and actually for our clients as well, when we've got those folks who've been in our database for a longer period of time, and then we do get engaged in a sales conversation, we're more likely to close. And they're more likely to have a longer life cycle with us as a customer because they're more familiar and more comfortable with us. Mm-hmm. I've got a couple of clients right now that they're just starting to think about this now that they've got their sales engine going, but it's a hard concept to get around. And it's really hard for marketing to get behind that because to your point, that's not what they get measured on. They get measured on new.
Well, the other thing where it goes wrong is that there's a whole mess in the math because of how we waterfall.
Yep.
Right. So we're under this intense pressure to generate new leads. And so we fail to really leverage the lead pools that we have. And then we complain that 98, 99% of MQLs never become a customer. Well, first off, you and I both used to be in the travel industry, and I was in the travel industry as cruising was becoming a big thing.
Yeah.
And one of the statistics that cruise companies would always use to tell you why you needed to get on the cruise bandwagon was they said, they would say things like only 7% of vacationers have ever taken a cruise. So the number of people that haven't taken a cruise is far, far greater than, and I can't remember who pointed it out, but they said, look, that's an interesting number, but it's also a fake number, because if you take a look at what's involved in a cruise, different things, you're basically looking at, no more than, I think at the time he said it was like no more than 20% will take a cruise.
Yeah.
And his point was, so if you look at it as the cap is 20%, what we're really saying is only 33% of the potential cruising public is cruised. So it's a growth market.
Right.
But it's not, right? So
not as
again,
much as they're saying. Yeah.
Right. If you take a look at an MQL, and again, realizing that an MQL is not about intent, is not about disposition in the sense of I like you, I don't like you. An MQL should be an objective set of criteria. It's really about fit over and above anything else, right? Well, you're not going to work with 100% of the companies in your ICP.
Yeah.
Right. That's what a marketing qualified lead is. It fits our ICP. It's part of our TAM.
Yep.
It fits our TAM.
Yep.
Right. Or, to take go-to-market partners, it fits our total relevant market. Right. But again, you're not going to have 100% of your relevant market. You're not going to have 100% of your TAM. You're not going to have 100% of your SAM. You're not going to have 100% of your ICP. Right. So A, that number is off, but B, how much are we contributing to the fact that 98 or 99%? Because we treat everybody, we're in this massive run to late numbers, to new numbers. So we treat low intent leads like they're high intent. We've got a major recency bias. I'm rewarded as a marketer to generate a low quality new lead far more than I am to develop engagement with a higher quality old lead. Right.
Yep.
What we've got to get back to is the understanding that what this is all about is managing the throughput of revenue acquisition.
Yep.
And everything else is a means to that. And we've got to get out of this linear bucket that makes it feel like it's simpler when in fact it's just insufficient.
Yep. All right.
And that's all I had to say about that.
I got a couple of takeaways. I'm interested on your thoughts on my last one. So you just talked about it. It's not a linear process, right? Don't only focus on net new and forget the leads that you have. Make sure you're working.
And by the way, to be clear, not only if it's not a linear process, what is it? It's a pinball machine.
Yeah, 100%. I liked what you said about having an account map built and understanding your market and aligning with that. I think, we've done that with clients. It makes it so much clearer for the reps to understand what they're doing when you do that. And then my last thought is it's not the label, it's the definition and having a clear framework and structure for what you're doing. So call it an MQL, call it a banana, call it what you want. It's really about having that clear definition and framework around it.
I think that we should call our MQLs Edsels.
Edsels?
And our SQLs are Ferraris.
Okay. Let's do that.
New life cycle. What's our Edsel to Ferrari conversion rate, Jess? Yes, I agree.
It's how I feel about pipeline stages, by the way. Call it whatever the hell you want to call it. It's about having clear definition. Now the language needs to make sense, but
so me, I like to label pipeline stages to be behavioral cues.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't have a problem with marketing qualified. Marketing qualified is qualified for marketing activities.
Right.
of which salespeople doing things is a marketing activity. Sales qualified is another phase of. It is qualified for sales interaction, for sales conversation.
Yep.
Right. So like, I don't have a problem with that.
No, I know.
Again, if you have a problem with the term, throw it out. But it's kind of like when everyone said, hey, sales ops is dead. You need to go to RevOps.
Yeah.
Okay. The question is not what do you call it? The question is, what are you doing?
Right.
What's the underlying framework? What's the operational definition? Build a strong framework, Jess. You don't have to worry about shitty RevOps.
Until next time, everybody.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the RevOps Show. We've unpacked why qualifying contacts instead of accounts has been a major misstep, and without clear, consistent life cycle stage definitions, it's no wonder MQLs have earned such a bad reputation. Remember, an MQL isn't inherently bad. On top of that, I want to reiterate something that Doug said that stood out to me. We really need to get back into managing the throughput of revenue acquisition and align our strategies with a deep understanding of our market. Process isn't linear, so let's use something that reflects the realities of today's business environment. Thanks for tuning in this week. Listen to the rest of our show on your favorite podcast listening platform. Follow the show, rate the show, share the show even. We'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to follow Doug, Jess, or Lyft, you can find us all on LinkedIn. Or if you have a question and you want to reach out to me at hannah@lyftenablement.com. And until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps.